Okay, so, I don't really need to give you an exercise all the time. There's like one thing you can kind of massage yourself. You can lay relaxed like me, just on your back. And then you just start feeling out your hand. And you try to find spots that are a bit painful. And then you take a bit of oil. And then you do what I think you would call acupressure. So here's a pressure point and that hurts when I press it. So I start to kind of figure it out, and there where is the most pain, I try to exert a bit more pressure. And at some point, if I do this long enough and I get the hang of it, the pain will leave. And so what you also can do is you take off your shirt, then you use oil, like trace the line of your arm, for instance, and then you look for spots that are painful. And then you massage them. Like you can massage like this. Like there's something painful. Just generally massage also this. Wow. So yeah, also here. So people who have problems with migraine, it often comes from the neck. So you have to start learning how to gently stretch your neck, how to work with yourself and figure out what feels good and what doesn't. Because I can tell you that from the work that I have to do, according to my feeling, now I get really exhausted. I push myself quite far, but I also need to know how to, rest. Because if I just keep pushing, I'm going to fall off the edge. But I want to walk over the edge. Because I want to walk over the edge, I need to become a master of whatever is going on around here. And so trying to live as good as you can is a very good idea. But you also have to take care of your body, be responsible, and take credit for what you do, but also that everybody is always supporting you. Right. So having said that, just to recap the day, it felt quite hectic. Sometimes I really didn't want to do it. But in the end, it feels kind of good that I have done it anyway. But somehow I'm not really sure. Sometimes I also don't really like some of my music that I do, maybe until a bit later. So usually while I'm creating, I'm also working with all that, it's gonna be shit. I'm just gonna do it anyway, because somehow in the end, I always liked it. But that's also the thing when you change, and when you keep changing as an artist, and you want to keep changing, ever evolving, and you also don't get stuck in certain ways, like that series that the creators of Rick and Morty also did, like the space series. I found it quite boring because it was just a rip-off from Rick and Morty. And that's why, yeah, I enjoy Rick and Morty, but I don't like rip-offs. And that's just to the people who already think oh, I'm gonna do what he does, and I'm gonna make a lot of money with it. That's also to whoever is listening to this, don't fall for people like this. I mean, they first have to show you that you can do it. Anybody can act like somebody. So you have to watch them a bit. And maybe that's why people were in the beginning quite hesitant with my content, because they probably weren't sure if I was going to be around for much longer. They probably assumed that, I would just commit suicide at one point. And I never really realized that. But as I have been persistent, I think they start to feel a bit more safe, because of course I'm also quite of a sharing nature. And so yeah, it's just, you do things and you try to understand them, and it gets you to, sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's better if you just let things develop without thinking about them too much. Because it's also a trap, right? Because now I'm starting to film myself with this camera, and I realize that when I walk around now, even though I'm not filming myself, I have the feeling I am. And then I start talking to an audience which isn't there. And that's kind of a weird place to be in. But at the same time, it also allows me to see myself in a completely different light. Because if I'm watching my life like it's being filmed, it suddenly looks much more beautiful and bright. And that's then the observer rather than the person who's actually doing it, but you are more like observing yourself doing stuff. Yeah, something like this. Anyway, what I've realized is that, sometimes things can be quite hectic. Like this day-to-day was quite uncomfortable. That's for sure. Walking and then with the dog and then also smoking here in Germany, it's like, it's quite uncomfortable. But at the same time, I also learned a lot. I found out that I can do like weird mojo. I mean, in a way, I know that already, because shamans are basically magicians. Also, my Maya sign is the white wizard. So, I mean, everything's kind of like falling into place. And that's kind of nice, of course. It's also quite relaxing. And that's why I can also ease into it a bit more. But sometimes it's easy to just go back to old habits, just like brushing it or eating. But also, it's good to experience things on psychedelics. But unless you manage to get there without the psychedelic, you haven't actually learned anything. So if you have a vision of you being a great chef or I don't know what, or if you can cook great with cannabis, you also should learn how to cook great without it. So that you also know, right, I can do these things with or without substances. Anyway, I mean, it's just sometimes, right? Just try the opposite for a while and just see where that gets you. It's not bad or worse, it's just different. And I think it's okay to just assume that you're gonna somehow manage to find the middle again. And that's what I sometimes do. I just jump into the things and then I see where I come out. And sometimes I have no idea what's going on. Like today, if I wouldn't have been with that dog, there were times where I would have stopped. But she like really gently also guided me through there, which is actually kind of weird. Because you think you're the doer, I have the feeling I'm walking her. And then in the end, suddenly she participates so gently in this insane demonstration. Because she lets me work with her fear in front of the camera. It's like quite insane. And then you realize, I mean, of course there's no coincidence, but how can I claim that I'm doing all of this if it's just happening to me? I'm just somewhat reacting to it. That's kind of the crazy part. It's just happening to me and I'm just reacting to it. And that took me a hell of a lot of practice and focus and like mental training to also see opportunities for what they are by feeling how I feel about them and then deciding yes or no. And that's then intuition, like your inner compass. And with this, I receive visions, and with this, I feel the direction into them. So do I want to do this now? How do I feel about this? Do I want to do that now? How do I feel about this? So this is how I'm doing it, right? So I want to live a completely intuitive life, which is close to the Zen philosophy, in the sense that it says, eat when hungry, eat when tired, sleep. So you do what you feel like. If you feel like going running today, you do that. But sometimes, you're stuck in kind of, old habits, and then you have to figure out, new things. Like do things that you haven't done yet. Like try something that feels really insane without being like suicidal or something. Just try to be a bit gentle with yourself and try to figure out, maybe try a cacao ceremony once or something, let these things come to you. I never really actively searched for these things. They just suddenly were there, right? So I just walked through my life with the intention, I think I want to do ayahuasca again. And then I just keep walking, and at a certain point, it's like, oh, there it is. Because I've walked there already, and life prepared me also for that experience. If I simply, that's a thing with working towards things. So if you were to just say, okay, I have money and people offer ceremonies of ayahuasca, I'll just go there and pay a lot of money, and they'll do it for me. I won't have the same benefit. So if you want to work with psychedelics and your visions, you also have to realize that that brings a lot of responsibility for the vision. Anyway, doesn't really matter. But what matters is, if you do things, do them right. Don't be too hard on yourself or something. Just start to get going in any direction that you feel like, whether that's like creative, or maybe you want to try out like really new music things or something. I don't know. There's playlists on my website in the podcast section. Under my English podcast, there's a collection of playlists, and I suggest you just start listening to them also in the combination with psychedelics. I found them to be like a great help. At the moment, I don't really listen to this anymore because I'm more at the stage where I say I want to make my own music. So I listen to fewer musicians so that my music is exactly that, my music. Right? Because I switched from consumerism to a somewhat more creativism. Right? So I want to be a producer. Right? I want to create my own life, an active process. And I think it's important to realize that it's going to be a hell of a ride. And surely nobody's going to do it for you. Yeah, so people really have to work for their experiences. The substance is only like a mediator. But if you're lazy, the substance won't change you. It will just keep you trapped in using the substance. So yeah, today was certainly a challenge. And so were those other days. And so is every day. And I just do what feels right at the moment. And although I had a vision of me not eating anymore and feeling how it felt like to be free of food, and it felt so great. But then I wake up to the reality that I'm not there yet, but I've been granted a vision. This is how you could feel like. You literally could live a life where you only drink tea and coffee maybe, right? Like that's something for me to look forward to. But at the moment, I think I still need food. And nobody can really say that to me. This is a feeling that I have, that right now I still want to eat like vegan stuff mostly. But I'm certainly working towards a much more simplistic diet based on liquids. I'm really working towards that, and I'm making more experiences with eating a bit less. I've also realized that until now, I eat a lot of stuff that most people would find insane, but I just need the energy at the moment. So I eat what helps me to do what I feel like doing, right? I do the things that help me to do what I want to do. And that's why, yeah, sure, I ask for donations. I tell people about my books, sue me. All I can say is that for me, it's absolutely worth it to promote my own stuff, because that's the only thing that I could ever truly back up. Because it's the most honest thing I can think of to work in the way that I'm working. And that's exactly what I needed to stand up for something and like knock at the door of creation. So in that sense, you know the drill. I've said that probably before, but in the end, it's your choice. It's Christopher-Reusch.com. And I think this was April. It's really hard to find new ways of doing things, especially if you're stuck in the same place for a long time. But I always manage to do something a bit different. Like this is all the same city, but I somehow managed to introduce some form of change with every video. And you see, that just shows how many possibilities there truly are. When you just start walking and you see what you find along the path, rather than always waiting for something to come to you. Things only come to you when you first put in the effort to draw them into your direction. And having said that, I also can say, yes, stop listening to me and start living your own life. I am a fantasy as well to you. I am an illusion to you. I'm just a reflection of yourself that's telling you this is how your life could be. This is how your life could be if you put in the work, right? This is how your life could be. You have to figure out how your life should look like by what attracts you. And for that, you have to make experiences. And of course, you can try exactly what I'm doing. And when you realize that that's not really it for you, then I hope you have the courage to let go and figure it out for yourself. That's just something that I find really important to say because, right, I don't want to trap people with me. I don't want to become people's trap. I want there to be their like stepping stone. I can take it, right? I'm here anyway. So use what I've used and do whatever you want to do. And like that's the best advice I can give you on figuring it out and hacking your own life or something. Right? You have to like want to puzzle through it. That's what I've tried, like puzzling through it. Like the analytical mind, you just have to observe and collect insights and everything will happen. You just have to have a question that you want to be answered. So you try to understand fear, you try to understand suffering, you try to understand, I don't know, movement. And then you start to move. And then new ways to move will come your way. And you think, what the heck? Like, where's this coming from? Like, what? Like, seriously? Yeah, and then you have to work to get to that place. Work hard and do it.